Today's Friday, August the 20th, and we got the bounce in spades this time. We got a little bit of a bounce yesterday that we predicted when we had this oversold McClellan. The McClellan went down a little bit further, and now we've had the big bounce. And all of the indices today responded. But let's take a look at FinViz, and you can see that yesterday it was the opposite. It was 75 to 25. Now we've got advancers roughly 3 to 1, and the volume was pretty good. The market was just on an upwards move. All three markets all day long, everything was green. If we look at the bubble map, we can see which sectors, let's just look at bubbles here, and we can see which sectors were doing well. And NVIDIA was a stock that did well. These healthcare stocks did well. These consumer cyclical stocks did well. And the consumer defensive stocks, Target, Kroger, Newell Brands, that's Rubbermaid, Cisco, and Dollar Tree, all pretty much more than 1.5%. So that's good. And we see that in the chikou span, which we were looking to capture a bounce off of a candle, and that's what happened in the Dow Jones. In the NASDAQ, although we haven't made a new high here, this was a very clear bounce off of that candle. There's no mistaking the chikou span getting support on that candle and moving up. So sometimes when the cloud doesn't tell you anything, prices are above the cloud, they're above the moving averages. You look back 26 days and you look at the chikou span, and what is the chikou span telling you about support and resistance? These are always important. In the SPX, again, the support off the candle was just perfect for both days and finished off nicely. So this is what we said we were expecting when we saw the chikou span hitting those candles 2 days ago, and the volatility index made a major nosedive down, not quite into the safe area. Yeah, sort of into that safe area where the market should be moving up again. But you never know. Let's go back and take a look at the McClellan Oscillator, and let's look at what's happened in the past. You can get these oversold situations that just ride right up into, the bulls just take it right up into the overbought area. That's what happened here. That's not what happened here. It went neutral and then came down and made a lower low and then took off. Here it had a little bit of trouble, 3 days to recover back to the oversold line, and then just took off. Here it popped up and then back down again and then roared higher. Here, down, up, midway, down, and then roared higher. Here, roared higher. Here, hit the middle line, down, and then moved higher. So really, we could see a little bit of a drop again. We could see a movement, something like this one right here, or this one, or we could see it just take off. But one thing's for sure, the bulls are buying the dips. Apple up 1.1%. Chikou span now, look at the chikou span here. The chikou span is under this candle. That doesn't spell well for Apple, now does it? So we're going to take a look at that Monday and see, but I would say that this is resistance, and Apple may struggle a little bit on Monday. Abbott had a good day. Caterpillar came down to this green line here, which we were watching, and we said that if it hit this green line, that would be the chikou span getting support on the 200. That's why we had this arrow here, and that is exactly what happened. So is Caterpillar a buy? It looks like the stochastic is about to turn around, the faster moving stochastic. The slower moving stochastic is already showing an continuing overall upwards price trend, which we zoom out, and you can clearly see an upwards price trend down, channeling. The channeling slowed down the stochastic momentum indicator, and then now it's moving higher. But if Caterpillar stays above the 200 next week, it would be time to buy Caterpillar again. IBM did well. I'm still happy with the October 145 calls that I sold. NEO was doing well, and then it pulled back significantly to get this hammer. Does that indicate that we might see a reversal? Well, where was the resistance today? When it got up that high, where was the resistance? It was the chikou span on the bottom of the cloud. Once again, the chikou span. Always look at the chikou span, because just looking, if we didn't have the Ichimoku here, right? You'd look at this and you'd say, we'd be looking for head and shoulders patterns here. We'd be looking for inverse head and shoulders patterns, which of course you should do. I mean, do you see a shoulder and a head and a shoulder here? Yeah, maybe you do. But I would rather look at the Ichimoku, because all you know here is that the price is below the 200, and you want to buy when the price breaks the 200. Or you put your Ichimoku back on again, and you say, well, maybe the time to buy is when the chikou span breaks resistance at this point here. So you could put an alert right at the top of that candle and say when it goes above that, that's a time to buy. You might want to take some off when it gets to the 200. When it gets to the 200, it's also going to run into the chikou span and the top of the cloud. So that would be a time to back off, take some off, and then get back in again as it moves up to this value here of 43. What else do we want to look at? Sava had a pretty decent day today. Remember, my break even on my stock and my short calls is in this range here, and we're just below that range, so I'm happy with that trade so far. We are expecting news from Sava before the end of the month. Their CEO talked about some announcement that would come out before the end of August. Maybe that's a marketing announcement, maybe that's an injection of funds from a pharmaceutical company to get first rights on distribution of their product. Who knows? Square had a pretty decent day, but found resistance on the 8. Let's just take a quick look at some of the others that we said were responding well to technicals. And there's Disney. Doesn't tell me a lot, except there's not a lot of resistance here in the cloud if it does decide to take off. And it will take off if people are confident and start traveling to Florida. Whirlpool rejected at the 50. Chikou span still struggling with the candles here. I wouldn't be buying it. Best Buy got support on this candle here, moved above this candle. It's definitely moving higher now. It's got to get over the 50, and then Best Buy looks like an interesting stock. FedEx has now lost support on the 200 for the chikou span. It's struggling. That's not a stock that I would want to be buying. Netflix, look at the chikou span. It's really doing its best to get out of these candles. Now all it has to do is move sideways, and the chikou span has effectively broken the resistance of these candles that it's had really for some time. The chikou span has been below these candles, which has been holding the stock back here. And now it's starting to move up as it's making a breakout. So Netflix is a stock that you could do a call spread on. You could do a September 550, 560, or October 550, 560. And the last one we'll look at is W, which is Wayfair. And Wayfair ended up at the top of this candle for the chikou span. So that was a very nice break. Rejected at the 50, but once it gets over the 50, this would be an interesting stock to be looking at. And we still show some downside expected now in the faster moving stochastic, and the slower moving stochastic is getting up to a point where it's overbought. So maybe it's not such a good stock to be buying right now. Certainly these stochastics would not lend themselves to saying, yes, let's jump in and let's do that. So that's it for today. and the week. It was overall a down week for the Dow, for all of the markets, but it finished in a nice positive by the dip. Love it, and expect to see a choppy week next week as the McClellan oscillator fights to get back to the neutral, and let's see how much it chatters in this range, or if it moves directly up to the middle line and breaks through. So this is what I would be watching on Monday and Tuesday, is the McClellan oscillator.